assigned to the screen, the internal that it has, and then whatever it's getting out on. So not only at this point I have an internal IP address, I have an external IP address, which means I can now exfil data, right? Which is rad, because now I'm on their network in a couple places. I could leave. How long do you think I could leave that NUC up there? You guys already forgot it was up there, didn't you? Right there at the top. I could leave that in there. I bet you could sit in there for until they had to replace that whatever it's sitting on, some sort of blinky box firewall thing. It would sit there. No one would ever know, and it wouldn't need that much storage. I would just fire the data out, over DNS queries or something. I mean, who cares? You can get the data out so easily. So, anyways, that was fun. We get to do those it's fairly often, not as often as the boring stuff, but they had a camera in there, so I took a photo of it. Nobody did anything. And then I walked out. So that's some fun stuff you get to do as a pen tester. So yes, it can be fun. Sometimes we jump into the garbage. This circle, the bigger circle around the edge, represents an area of gross goo. And then that square is where Jeff's phone landed. Jeff, why is your phone in your front pocket, bro? And you're jumping into a garbage can? So anyway, Jeff's phone ended up in the goo, but we had some computers here. We didn't find anything in this dumpster, but there was another dumpster. We did find some unshredded documents that should have been shredded and things like that that are fun. So parts of pen testing can be pretty fun. All right, so I have biases, just like all humans have biases. I made my career work one specific way. It's not going to be the way for everybody. It worked for me. I'm pretty happy with how things went now. There were times where I was frustrated or would rather it go faster, but this is the life. So anyway, there's a couple of paths that may or may not work for you. If you're going to do this, this is clearly from like the UK, because if you're going to hack something, you don't get 2 gears, you get like 20, which is more like that. So if you're going to hack something and go the route on the right, make sure you do it in Europe, because they don't put you in jail for 100 years like they do in the US. Why they do that in the US, I have no idea, but they do. So I did an IT undergrad to begin. Now this began long before I got to college, right? I mean, I had a computer. The first computer we bought, I was in 8th grade, I believe, or 7th grade, and it was a 486 DX, not a DX2, 33 megahertz. Anybody even heard of one of those before? Yes, my homies. And it was super rad at the time, and it was like $4 grand or something crazy. And at that point, I just started messing around with it. It's a lot easier now. I think things are more accessible. That was the only computer in the house. That was the only microchip in the house, probably. And now my kids can run circles around me on a touch screen or any kind of device. So, and they're small. But anyway, this is how I started kind of my formal career path. So I did an IT undergrad at UVSC, which is now UVU. Really liked it. Highly recommend that school. And I just started learning stuff. I decided, hey, maybe I should get some certs, because certs are cool, right? If nothing else, you can put like some alphabet soup at the end of your name. And then skills, I just learned things. There's things that I wanted to do that I couldn't do with the Windows machine. And I'm like, well, how are people doing this? How are people running a web server that actually works, that isn't IIS? So then I started figuring out how Linux worked and how to get around in Linux, and those are both things that are probably pretty valuable. And then that was what I ate, drank, and slept security. So if this is something that you want to do, it will be something that you need to do, like all the time. I woke up in the morning, I read through at least 30, 45 minutes on my Twitter feed. My Twitter feed was all security giants in the industry, reading what are they doing, what tools are they authoring, what vulnerabilities came out last night. And then eventually when I had enough skills and I met a couple other people that had some skills, we started a company. And that made it easy to get some work, because we didn't have to convince a boss that we were good at our job. We just had to convince clients that we were good at our job, which we did okay at. And then I got a graduate degree after that. So I have a Master's of Science at University of London, which was a good time, and but not necessarily required to get started by any stretch. And then I just worked hard. There's no substitute for work. And that's not just, like I said, item number 3, it's work at work, and then when you get home, do some family time, don't neglect that. But then it was, hey, what vulns are new that I don't understand? I don't understand how they work. So how does this, and luckily now at this point, information is pretty freely shared, so you can read up on it, you can create it, recreate it, do it yourself, figure out how it works, attack your friends, that's cool, right? Anyway, so the more you understand, the better. So that's kind of what I did. I'm biased towards that path because it worked for me and I liked it and it was pretty good, but again, it's not the only path. So let's talk about roles for a second. So there's 2 kind of paths, I feel like, and this may not be universally true, and the categories I throw out may not be universally true, but you can go internal into a company, right, and work from the inside. The downside of that, sometimes that's more blue team stuff. If you're into pen testing, you may not get that role right off the bat, and I think that's okay. External is probably lends itself more towards being a consultant or a pen tester, somebody that comes in. Most companies don't need a full-time pen tester. Larger companies do have us on staff, but most companies will pay 10 to 40 grand to have a pen test every year. So there's definitely room for both sides. Again, the internal route, you may not start out as a pen tester. You may be looking at firewall logs or IDS logs or alerts or how to make the alerts better, etc. And then maybe move into some sort of vulnerability management role. And then on the external side, you kind of just move up. You kind of just get better and better as you get more experience, and your title changes, but your work is pretty much the same until you eventually start running engagements, that kind of thing. So yeah, again, some of these may not be universally true, and I've actually never worked internally for a company ever, so I took a stab. There are paths over there towards pen testing. I don't think it's the fastest path, but it may be the best structured path. I don't know. I'll leave that as an exercise to the listener. Okay, so let's talk about signaling for a second. So how do you signal to a driver in front of you that you're turning left? Guys couldn't do full double bird back there. That was cash. So you hit the turn signal stock, right? You go full double bird if you want. It's a little extreme to start out the relationship that way, but that's cool. So same with work. Same with showing that you know things. You need to signal to an employer or to a client that you have some skills. Okay, so there's a couple ways, a couple signals that you can arm yourself with that will make this a little bit easier. One of them is a university program, an undergrad. Helpful, of course, not required by any stretch. And again, these are the same as the previous slide. May not be universally true. If you just have been a hacker your whole life, then pen testing probably becomes easy and you just walk right into whatever job you want. You still have to convince somebody, though. And if you have no signals to convince somebody of that, then you may not be able to work there. Great universities very close by. Okay, you don't have to leave Utah to necessarily do this. You can, of course. BYU's program has really matured lately in security. I'm a little underwhelmed by UVU's security. Is anybody in UVU's security program currently? I wish that they would spend a little more time, and I think they're trying to. When I was there for my IT undergrad, I had one class in security, and I thought, hey, this stuff seems pretty cool. But then that was it, and the teacher was meh. So, but they're all maturing. BYU, I know the guy that, Dale Rose, the guy over there, and he is the chair of the cybersecurity program, and he is super smart, and he's really developing that program quite well. So if that's an option for you, that'll work. There's probably some for-profit college options. There's several around. Probably have to do some research there. So experience. During college, you might already have an inclination to work in IT, right? What I like to think about security people is that IT was too easy for us, so we had to do something harder, security, right? IT is great, I'm not downplaying, but we just needed more. We were worried about things like confidentiality and integrity over availability, right? That's the IT folks or availability program. Okay, so hopefully during your undergrad you're working, you have some jobs, you can have some sort of experience. If you know Linux because you had to stand up a LAMP server or whatever and maintain that for a previous employer who's a small business, that helps, okay? If you know your way around Linux, almost required, I would say. There are very few tools that are Windows only. There's a couple, depending on what you want to do, but Linux, they're mostly Linux, and most of the room probably already realizes that. Basic certs, you can start getting these at any time. Security Plus is okay. IT certs will help you. My first cert was half of a CCNA for a while, and they may still do this, I don't know, but you could take the CCNA in 2 halves, and so I took 1 half. I didn't even take the second half. That was my first cert, but it taught me a lot about networking, that kind of thing. The Associate of ISC2 is not really a great basic cert, but I don't want anybody to be scared of it. So if you're not familiar, that is the same cert as a CISSP without the experience. So if you have no experience, you can sit for this exam and obtain the Associate of ISC squared. And then once you hit 5 years, that flips over into a CISSP, which is great because you already did the test and then you're just doing your time. This is just a big vocabulary exam for the most part. That's all this is. Understanding what the terms mean, how they work, what is involved, learning the network stack, all of those things. That's the main point of that. So if you can, I studied a long time for that. Some people probably could do it easier than I did, but it's a pretty good signal, especially once it rolls over into your 5 years, and then you're now CISSP, which is also a good signal. Okay, and then just knowing basic tools. Can you tell me the difference between traceroute and traceRT? Go ahead. One's Linux and one Windows, that's correct. How do they work functionally differently? What's different about them, the way they work? It's okay if you don't know. So, does no one know, though?
I know part of how it works is that it has a time to live, and it basically sets a low time to live, and then every time it does time to live expired in transit, then you get a message back, and then it says, okay, let me send it out, and let me do the time to live a little bit higher until you get the next hop. So that's how some of it works. I don't know the differences.
Yeah, no, thanks for taking a stab. So basically, he said that it sets a time to live, which is the next hop, and then when it gets past that hop, it comes back, gets a response, and then increments the time to live one by one, and then sends another one out until it gets to where it's going, right? That's absolutely correct. So Linux uses UDP on a specific port, 32332, I believe, and Windows uses ping, ICMP packets. So they achieve the same thing. I knew a hiring guy at, now I can't remember what company he was at, a larger company. He said he wouldn't hire anybody that didn't know how traceroute worked. I said, well, that's a little specific, but cool, But a lot of these are basic tools. Traceroute is a networking tool, right? That's easy. That's not even a security thing, although I use it all the time. Nmap is a security tool. Has anybody not heard of Nmap? Raise your hand. It's okay. We won't laugh at you. Just kidding, we will laugh at you. Just kidding. I wasn't just kidding because I did laugh at you, sorry. I'm a nice guy, I promise. So Nmap, if you only know how to use ZenMap,